Good evening, everybody. Today is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. For a Planning Board business meeting, please join me in a salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, otherwise known as the Sunshine Law. Notice of the 2025 annual meeting schedule has been provided to the officially designated newspapers, the Township Clerk, posted on the Township website, and available at the Hillsborough Township Municipal Complex. All application documents will be made available on the Township's website at least 10 days in advance of the meeting. Complete application files are available in the Planning and Zoning Department for inspection in accordance with the public meeting notice. And with that, can I have a roll call of all board members and professionals?
Yes. Mr. Deb is absent. Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Flagg?
Here.
Mr. Redowitz?
Here.
Mr. Vitale?
Here.
Ms. Smith? Here. Mr. Smith?
Here.
Committeeman Lapani?
Present.
Mayor Ciccarelli?
Here.
Vice Chairman Peason?
Present.
Chairman Sarchi is absent. Mr. Coyce?
Present.
Ms. Ball? Here. And Mr. Hack?
Here.
Mr. Paulus? He's here, and I'm here.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next up is consideration of meeting minutes. On the agenda tonight, there is the meeting minutes of December 12th, 2024. However, we do not see them loaded up on Civic Clerk, so we will defer those meeting minutes until next meeting. Consideration of resolutions, seeing none, we'll move on to Planning Board business. And number one is Master Plan Amendment, Land Use Element, January 2025. Mr. Coyce, would you want to take it away?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you're all aware, the Hillsborough Township Planning Board is currently undergoing a comprehensive master plan update. However, the proposed master plan amendment land use element for tonight is a result of a settlement agreement between the Township of Hillsborough and Larkin entities. The lawsuit was filed on July 31st, 2023, following the passage of Ordinance 2023-08 on June 13th, 2023, to remove warehousing, shipping, and receiving facilities as a principal permitted use in the I-1, I-2, I-3 light industrial districts, the GI general industrial district, and LI light industrial district. It also removed warehousing, shipping, and receiving from the definition of an industrial or office park. Since the adoption of the ordinance, a total of 87 certificates of nonconformity have been issued by the township zoning official, most of which are located in the LI district. This amendment recommends permitting small-scale logistics facilities as a principal permitted use in the LI light industrial district and other such standards. This amendment is intended to maintain the character, scale, economic viability of the stated LI district. Once this amendment is adopted, it will be incorporated into the ongoing master plan as part of the land use plan element. As we dive into the document itself, most of which I just stated is within the document in the introduction. It then goes on to talking about the study area. For the purpose of this amendment, the study area is the LI district, which consists of nearly 300 acres, most of which are developed with the exception of approximately 43 acres. Just give you a little bit of history of the LI zone. It was created in 2009. Previously, this area was in the GI General Industrial District. In 2009, it was recommended as part of the 2005 Master Plan Amendment that the purpose of the new LI Light Industrial District is to provide areas where a wide range of office, industrial, and other non-residential uses are permitted within the limits of design and environmental regulations. Under planning considerations, just keep in mind, as I stated before, we do have the ongoing master plan update, and there are several new goals that are being considered. They're not yet adopted. So for the purpose of this amendment, it's still the current goals that the township has. And so for that purpose, I have a number of them stated that shows that essentially this amendment is consistent with all the goals that are stated here. A lot of it has to do with having an appropriate land use pattern for the township, exercising stewardship over the land and waters to ensure the resources are available for present and future generations, emphasis on the community design to encourage development of employment areas near residential neighborhoods, but with design that assures peace and solitude of residents. And as we go into the recommendation, a lot of this has to do with finding the right and appropriate scale for the use to fit within the area. Transportation, minimize the impacts of transportation system on the environment, including air and noise pollution. And for economic development, expanding employment opportunities by encouraging the development in appropriate areas and consistent with available infrastructure and supporting services. And also to promote employment opportunities in locations compatible with existing proposed development. Then the document goes into the recommendations. The use that's being recommended is essentially trying to respect what has essentially been built in the LI and that's currently operating there. The terminology for the use is called small scale logistics, and it explains all the different different functions that could take place within that definition. If this amendment is approved, the Township Committee can take any of these recommendations and choose to apply the appropriate standards to enact it and put it in place. Another recommendation is to change the definition of an industrial or office park from a use to a design standard. Just to give a little bit of background on that, the way the ordinance was originally designed, it had considered warehousing, shipping, receiving as its own principal permitted use, but it also talked about industrial parks or office parks as being its own individual principal use. When you would go into the definition for an industrial park, it gave a general statement that warehousing, shipping, receiving was permitted. When the Township Committee took action, they not only took warehousing, shipping, receiving out as a principal permitted use, but they made sure to also take it out of the definition. And so what this recommendation is trying to do is to treat a industrial park more as a design for from a function standpoint instead of considering a use. This would clear things up in terms of how we administer things within the office as well. This is a really important recommendation. It's limiting the building size to 41,000 square feet, except for the large format supermarket. When we look at all of the current industrial buildings within the LI district, there's no building that's larger than 41,000 square feet. The next recommendation was to also reduce the height maximum to 2 stories or 35 feet. It was previously 60 feet. And for this to be consistent with the master plan and the goals, especially when it comes to having an appropriate scale, this was an important recommendation to include. And then limiting the maximum loading docks from 1 per 5,000 square feet. That's basically representing what is currently in the LI maximum. So there's a variety of different industrial buildings throughout the district that are either owned by Larkin or owned and operated by other entities. And the most loading docks that are included in any of those buildings are 1 per 5,000 square feet. And with that said, those are all the recommendations.
Okay. Any questions from the dais?
Dave, I have a question. Thanks for putting this together. The height maximum to 35 feet. We've come across this on another application. Is there anything that establishes the elevation or from where that 35 feet is measured?
So currently, we would still be going by the current definition within the ordinance that measures it from grade to the highest part of the roof structure. There could possibly be a recommendation in here to, if you wanted to include it, that we could potentially change that.
I think it's actually a larger scope
Okay.
than just this, right?
Mhm.
So we don't want somebody putting up 15-foot embankment and then putting 35 feet on top of that. And that's what we're trying to avoid, which is what happened on another site. So I think we need to consider, from a global standpoint, how we handle that in the master plan. Maybe not in this document,
Okay.
right? But from a global standpoint, how do we measure it? Because we can change it for this one, but then we're going to change it for every other one.
Right.
So I think we need to, as we revisit the master plan, need to consider that definition and how it flows through into the rest of our master plan and ordinances.
Understood. For those of you who recall, the definition essentially is two sentences. The first one, I'm just going to paraphrase it because I don't have it in front of me right now, but the first sentence talks about measuring it from the grade essentially up to the roof. The second sentence talks about when a structure faces two right-of-ways, it could actually be measured with the average. Some of the Larkin properties and the LI are actually a pretty good example of this because a number of those warehouses actually front on public roads on both ends. And so the majority of those buildings are actually built a little bit under 30 square feet. But they do get to use that second part of that definition that gets to use the average, meaning regularly when a structure just faces one road, all faces of the structure can't be any larger than the maximum measured from grade to the roof. But we could certainly keep that in mind and incorporate it into the rest of the update.
Well, it seems to be a
Beyond this.
gap, right? If we're
Right.
measuring from two roadways, why would we not measure from one?
Right.
But it's just a gap I think we need to close.
Yeah, agreed. I think originally the thought process was that when a road's being constructed, it's very possible from one road to another, they're going to be at different elevations. And I think that was some thought to that. But we could take a look at it and see how it applies to everything else.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you, Mayor.
I got, David, are there any structures in this complex that are over the 35 feet? Like that, isn't there, at the end of Raider and Stryker, they used to do juice? RC Fine Foods, are they over the 35 feet? And would they need to have a waiver for an existing building?
RC5, I don't believe they're over 35 square feet.
35, not square feet. height.
Excuse me, 35 feet in height. I don't believe they're higher than that.
I guess if we can confirm that, just because otherwise we put them in non-compliance situation.
Correct. If they are, any structure that ends up being higher than the 35 square feet, if they're completely destroyed, they would need a variance to be rebuilt at higher than 35. They could be rebuilt at the 35, though.
Okay.
What would you advise?
I guess, we can move this. I just would like to know from our standpoint, because they're obviously not here,
Okay,
to talk about it in front of us as a owner. I don't know if they were notified or not.
Okay.
And Larkin was, but just to make sure if they are in compliance with this number or not.
Okay, we can make sure, and certainly before the introduction, again, if this amendment is approved by the planning board, we could certainly make sure before the ordinance is introduced.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
David, I have a question. The map that's on the proposal, showing the area that's in the section, is this the entire remainder of the light industrial zone, or?
Yes, that lighter gray is the entire LI district.
Okay, got it. So it's nowhere else in the township?
It's nowhere else in the township. There are plenty of those zones that are called light industrial, but they're all technically different. This is the only one that's the LI light industrial district.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All good? All right, so with that, would anybody want to make a motion to recommend this updated master plan amendment land use element? Oh, okay. Motion to open to public.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, anybody from the public, please come forward, state your name and location.
Good evening, Brian Tarantino on Fairfield Lane. How's everybody doing tonight? So I wanted to start by really commending the Township Committee for back in 2023 passing the change to eliminate warehouses as a permitted use in the township. I think it was the right action. It was good for the town. It was good to recognize that it was causing that kind of high intensity that we really are not wanting in our town, and I think that was a really great thing. Of course, there are going to be people that are unhappy about that, and we have to contend with that, but certainly that doesn't mean it wasn't the right step to take. I'd also like to commend, I don't know if it's you guys or the Township Committee, for seeking to settle the Larkin suit. I think that's the right thing to do. Larkin's an important corporate citizen, and so taking that kind of step really makes a lot of sense. The concern that I have is that there could be a loophole that would result in a developer building multiples of these 41,000 square foot buildings and still have a plot that would have the same kind of intensity that was originally intended to be avoided. So, for instance, we know Village ShopRite was proposing to subdivide their property and build a 171,000 square foot building. They didn't submit a complete application and are suing us all for their lack of completeness on their application. But they certainly could use this new small-scale logistics facility to, I don't even know if they would need to subdivide. They could take that plot, and instead of putting 171,000 square foot building, they could put 41,000 square, and they would get the intensity that they were looking for. And by the way, they were proposing 34 loading docks with 41,000 square foot. They could get 32 loading docks. So they would still get their loading docks. They would still get pretty close to the square footage they were looking for. So that's my concern, is that while this is a really good thing to do, I think I don't have any argument with the 41,000. I just want to make sure that there is some protection against folks getting creative and bypassing what you guys are trying to do. One suggestion I would have is there would be a total limit on the number of square foot for small-scale logistics facilities that you can propose for a particular piece of property or for a particular development application. I would suggest that might be 41,000 square feet, but perhaps there's a more elegant way to do it, and I would defer to your judgment about how you might want to do that. But my concern is that as written today, somebody like Village ShopRite could just basically get what they were originally looking to get. Thanks for hearing me.
Great, thank you for the input, Mr. Tarantino. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, any and all input is welcome.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Anybody have any comments on that? We can parse it and, try to slice it and dice it any way we can, but we may come back around to the same issue of a property owner saying you just devalued my property and I want to sue you some more. So, I think that's kind of my thought on that. Anybody?
Well, we are in an active lawsuit with them, so probably should not say anything publicly about it. But thanks for your attention to it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
We do.
David, actually, I have a question based on what Mr. Tarantino brought up. I thought I saw something about the FAR in here. What is the FAR for this district?
It's an excellent question. I'll get that for you. Where are you looking to? I could take any other questions too as well. Excellent multitasker.
I thought I saw it.
FAR.
I don't expect you to know every single district, so I'm sorry.
It's too many districts. I've tried. Thank you. Excellent. I cannot. All right. So let's see here. Actually, it might be written out as okay. The floor area ratio is 0.30. That's the current maximum. And so, Mr. Chairman, may I address some of the
Yes,
items that were
please.
brought up?
Absolutely.
Just to go back to Committeeman Lapani, while it's not specified in this master plan amendment, we do already have a draft ordinance in place. And one of the catch-alls that's included in there is talking about non-conforming structures. So there's actually a catch-all that's included in there that says that any principal accessory structure lawfully created which shall accidentally be destroyed may be replaced in the same location as occupied under the same specifications on the lot immediately prior to said accidental destruction and shall not constitute a non-conforming use. The reason why we included that was exactly for what you brought up, just in case there are some structures that were slightly higher than 35 square feet. To address what Mr. Tarantino brought up, while right now within the document, it doesn't have a specific square footage maximum within the definition, the proposed ordinance would actually include 41,000 square feet. By doing that, that means you couldn't have more than 41,000 square feet on any lot. So that would be the max. Someone would have to subdivide the property to, let's see here, the minimum lot area for the LI is 2 acres. So someone could potentially put a 41,000 square foot on a 2 acre lot, but they would have to conform with all the other standards, including floor area ratio, impervious coverage. So that's another way to actually manage the intensity.
Those are existing.
Those are existing standards. Correct. Essentially, what's in the recommendations are things to further make the zone stronger in terms of managing the size and scale of any new buildings that could potentially come into the district.
All right. I think that answers that.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Okay. Motion to close the public.
So moved.
All in favor?
All right.
Okay. All right. Any comments, Counselor, on this? Good. All right.
You make them
Any more from our engineering pros,
planners.
planners?
Don't call them
Sorry.
engineers. I get
I'm an
mad.
engineer now.
Okay.
Ms. Ball?
Very excited. This is great for me.
We have no further comments.
Great.
Thank you.
So much for the presentation. So with that now, would anybody like to make a motion to recommend this amendment to the land use plan element? And I believe this gets a recommendation to the governing body. So we're not specifically passing something until the governing body actually passes it. So this is a recommendation, if I'm not correct? Okay.
I guess I'll move, make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Okay, where did that go? All right, is this the MP amendment voting?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Wagner?
Yes.
Glad?
Yes.
Radowitz?
Yes.
Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Smith? Yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Lafani?
Yes.
Chicarelli?
Yes.
Peace.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is an update on the fourth round of affordable housing. Counselor, do you have an update?
So, and David was good enough to put together a little outline here of what some of the critical dates are. Some of them have already come and gone, obviously, but the most critical date that's coming next is by the end of this month, the Township Committee has to adopt a resolution committing to certain numbers. Now, the DCA, under the new law, was obligated to come out with numbers for both the present need and the prospective need. Present need is the rehabilitation need, that would be housing units that are occupied by lower-income families that are substandard, that they don't meet code, whatever. And so that's the present need. The prospective need would be new construction, so there's two numbers. DCA comes out with the numbers under the new law, and every municipality has the right to make its own determination as to those numbers. But there has to be obviously some justification, some support for them. And then by the end of this month, January 31st, the governing body of every municipality has to adopt a binding resolution committing to whatever numbers they decide, either DCA's numbers or their own numbers. And if you miss the deadline, you lose your immunity to builder's remedy lawsuits. So it's important, it's critical that that deadline be met. The Township Committee is going to be considering a resolution next week. There are some adjustments to the prospective need that are set forth in the resolution. And then once that resolution is adopted, we have 48 hours to file a lawsuit with the Superior Court asking that for a certificate of compliance. Once that lawsuit is filed, it gets sent to what is called the Affordable Housing Program. And the program is going to adjudicate if there's a challenge, third parties can challenge what the municipality's determination is, and the program will adjudicate those challenges. So after January 31st, according to David's timeline, which is accurate, the next deadline is February 28th. That will be the date by which the third party has to file a challenge to the municipality's determination of either present or prospective numbers. By March 1st, a municipality's obligations are established by default if there are no challenges filed. So if no one files a challenge by March 1st, those are the numbers that we need. By June, now here's a critical piece for the board, which is by June 30th, that's the deadline by which a municipality has to adopt a housing element and fair share plan. So of course, that is a process that involves the board, a recommendation back to the township committee. So you guys are going to be busy with that, and that third parties have an opportunity to challenge the housing element of fair share as well. And the deadline for interested parties to challenge that would be August 31st. I'm sorry. Should have been using my microphone. No one can hear me, right? I have to start all over? I have to start all over, right?
What he said.
Don't worry about it, I got you.
Okay. As long as the reporter got me.
That's all that matters.
So, housing element of fair share plan has to be adopted by June 30th. Third parties have the right to challenge the housing element and fair share plan. The deadline for that challenge is August 1st. And similar to the challenge to the housing numbers, if they don't meet that deadline, then it is accepted. And then March 15th is the deadline by which the Township Committee has to adopt all resolutions, ordinances to implement the housing element of fair share plan, any zoning changes, et cetera. So those are all the critical deadlines under the new law. The new law was, in theory, a concept to allow for some flexibility for municipalities to determine their own fair share housing obligation numbers. We'll see how it works in practice, I guess, but that's kind of, in a nutshell, where we are at the moment. The critical deadline is the date by which the Township Committee has to consider the resolution with respect to the numbers.
Great. Thank you. Questions? Yeah, I'm just curious, when there's a challenge by a third party, typically what type of party would be a third party that would challenge? Would it be the?
Typically, it would probably be the Fair Share Housing Center.
Okay.
It could be anybody, really.
Contractor or developer?
It
or
could be a
citizen or-
developer. Yeah, any third party can challenge the numbers.
All right. So we have a little bit of work to do on that.
Should we, I don't know if it's appropriate for David to just put a little more detail on that? Or, I mean, I could, but fill in the blank. I mean, we were given, the DCA designated us for, determined 565, the future need. Our consultant has been doing work to reduce that number, and we have a proposed number that's less than half
Right.
of that, right? To be finalized, or, well, is it to be finalized or not? And then I understand that there's another step in the process here for a vacant land adjustment. When would that happen? When would the vacant land adjustment occur?
So, John, the vacant land adjustment, so there's a couple of things, and I put together the resolution for you
Yeah,
guys.
okay.
So I'm familiar with it, obviously. And Jen Beam, who's the planner, is working on the adjustments to the prospective need number. And as you indicated, DCA came up with 565, and Jen's recommending about half. I did speak to Jen on the present need number as well. There's not time to do this now, but what I've seen in some municipalities is what the COA regulations allow for is a windshield survey. And what they do is they go and they see if are there really X amount of numbers, housing units that need to be rehabilitated, kind of thing. That would take, and I think your number is 111 on the present need. That would take a pretty big effort, but what I'm putting in the resolution is some language to reserve your right to do that, right? So, and then throughout the resolution, there are reservations with respect to the vacant land adjustment as well. That would come in once it's referred to the program and once, if there's a challenge and that kind of thing. But we'll and really that comes in your fair share housing, your fair share housing element fair share plan. That's where it comes in.
So that's June 30th, so somewhere in that
Right,
timeframe.
right,
Okay.
right. So there's some time on the vacant land adjustment. There's also something called durational adjustment. So there are various, and the reservation on the present need that I just talked about. So there's some time to work on those issues as well before you adopt the housing element of fair share plan. And that would all be done through the program.
All right, great. So we're, I guess, locked and loaded for the deadline of January 31st with the resolution?
Yes.
Great.
We'll be introducing that ordinance next Tuesday.
On the 20th,
20th, is that next Tuesday or the weekend?
Yes.
28.
20th.
Okay.
And then
28th.
as I indicated,
28th,
within
28.
48 hours, the lawsuit has to be filed, and that kind of starts the whole process.
Great. All right. Any other questions from the dais? These are all good? All right. Thank you so much for that update.
You're welcome.
I'll just add that that all has to be built out in 10 years.
Right, it's a
Yeah.
10-year,
It's a 10-year program.
Yes.
Where the last one was 20 years, this is a 10-year program.
10-year program. And just to add to that, one of the things we're going to be doing as we look at the master plan update is looking at any of those vacant lots and looking to see what sort of challenges might exist with those lots being built. Because when we get to 2035, again, any of those lots that remain vacant will continue to drive the obligation number.
Considered buildable.
Right. So it does give us some time to try to understand, are there environmental concerns on some of those properties? If so, then that could potentially limit the potential building on those properties. So we have 10 years to try to figure out what are some of the challenges. Does the zoning need to change on some of those properties? Are there different types of uses that could potentially go there? So that's going to be one of the strategies to include in the master plan. And again, this is a new affordable housing law that we're all going through for the very first time and trying to see what the true impact will be. But in terms of some of the calculations with the obligations, we're already going to work to be strategic to look at that, to try to protect the town.
Okay.
and I'm not sure how familiar everybody here is, especially the new members, but the town has was it a 23%, 24% affordable housing? If a development goes in, 24% of the units need to be affordable. So basically, any number that has to be affordable, you multiply by 4, and that's the total number of units that we're going to develop have to be built over the next 10 years. So just keep that in mind. That's kind of how that works.
And that's in addition to everything that's already been approved, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we have a couple of developments, proposals from the third round that still have to be built.
They're
So
in the
yes,
pipeline.
they're in the pipeline.
All right. Now, anybody else? Yes, sir. All right, so thanks again for the update. And moving on to business from the floor for matters not on the agenda. I'll allow even if it is on the agenda. Anybody from the public? Okay.
What? I make a motion to adjourn before anybody has a chance to get up.
All right, so motion to close public?
Motion closed.
Now, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Consideration of ordinances, seeing none, we're moving on to adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I gave one.
There you go. Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
7:45.
Under an hour.
Make sure you call your wife, make sure the boyfriend left before you go
When
home.
there's no, thanks, guys.